Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. It's official, Andy Ruiz Jr. has joined PBC, signing with Al Haymon. This is from his Instagram, a statement and a picture, Premier Boxing Champions. Earlier there had been a story that surfaced on boxingscene.com that alluded to this fact, and it also said, according to sources, Ruiz bought out the remainder of his promotional agreement with Top Rank. And apparently he has. He's not with Top Rank anymore. He's with Al Haymon and the PBC. He hasn't been happy with Top Rank for some time now, making no secret about that on social media, and he's ended his arrangement with them. Hadn't been getting the fights that he wanted, wasn't active enough, wasn't going in the direction that he wanted to. So his statement here from his Instagram, it's official. I signed to PBC. Thank you, Al Haymon and Premier Boxing, for giving me the opportunity to work with them. Let's make history. Thank you to all my fans and supporters. Couldn't do this without you. I will be the first Mexican-American heavyweight champion. Who do you want to see me fight this year? Hashtag Andy Ruiz Jr. Then a whole bunch of other hashtags. Very good news for Andy Ruiz Jr. We'll give that one a like there. I do like to see Andy Ruiz Jr. get out from the situation that he was in. When you think about it, this guy really hasn't been in a real fight for a couple of years now. His last major fight was against Joseph Parker at the back end of 2016. After that fight, he went on a bit of a hiatus, took more than a year off, and then in 2018, he had a very disappointing year fighting journeyman Devin Vargas and Kevin Johnson. That was the best that he could do in 2018 in terms of opponents. And for me, I kind of thought, you know, Andy Ruiz Jr., he's 29. He's got a career in which he's ready for the big fights. He's had one big fight, that fight with Joseph Parker, very close fight. I thought it was a draw on the night. That was in New Zealand. That was for the WBO title. Since then, it just hasn't come up Andy Ruiz. It hasn't gone his way. Some of that, he obviously took some time off himself. That was, you know, his choice. But since he came back, he hasn't got the fights that he's wanted. His frustration with Top Rank has grown, and it's been bubbling over publicly. So I'm glad to see he's made the leap to PBC into a circumstance that he wants to be in. I just hope now that Andy Ruiz Jr. can get some of the fights that we'd like to see him in, because I believe that Andy Ruiz Jr. is a guy who, if he's fighting on a regular basis, is a top 10, top 15 guy. He's got very good skills, fast hands. Sure, he might not be the body beautiful, but he's a decent technician, and people underestimate him at their peril. He's a guy that could cause a number of upsets in the heavyweight division if given the opportunity. And he hasn't been given some of the opportunities of late. So with PBC, he's kind of in the right stable to potentially get some decent fights here. If we go over to the PBC website, just look at the stable here, potential fights. You've got Charles Martin, Dominic Breazeale, Adam Kanelski, Chris Arreola, Gerald Washington, Luis Ortiz, Oscar Rivas, Travis Kaufman, Artis Bilka, Deontay Wilder, Antonio Tarver, Michael Hunter, although I believe he signed with promoter Eddie Hearn now. Perhaps he's still being advised by Al Haymon though. You've got F.A. Jagba, and then Steve Cunningham. He's really more of a cruiserweight. BJ Flores, well, I think he's retired now, but maybe this website needs a bit of updating. Antonio Tarver's not going to be fighting anyone really. He's just recently had a ban for a performance-enhancing drug, I believe. But anyway, there is some names here, Luis Ortiz too, that he could potentially fight in 2019. I'd imagine a guy that would be right there for him if he wanted it, Chris Arreola. If they were to have, there was a lot of talk previously that Ruiz and Arreola, they could set that up, and that could be a sort of a Mexican-American showdown between the two. And there would be a bit of interest for that fight. And for Ruiz's first fight back after really a bit of a hiatus, that's not a bad fight. I mean, Chris Arreola is pretty shot now. It'd be a bit of a tune-up for Ruiz, and I'd imagine that he would get through that comfortably enough. Another guy we could look to is Charles Martin. This guy isn't scheduled for a fight right now, and that would be a pretty decent fight. Charles Martin, good southpaw, good height. He'd have the height and reach advantage against Ruiz, but Ruiz would have the speed advantage and potentially the skill advantage in terms of being the technician. It'd be an interesting fight. I think that would be, you know, favor Ruiz maybe 60-40 in that one, but it's a decent fight, and Martin, he can punch, he can crack, as we saw against Adam Kanelski when Kanelski started to gas in their fight late on. And there's a few other options in here depending on what happens with other results, because Gerald Washington, he's fighting later in January. Oscar Rivas, he's fighting later in January against Bryant Jennings. For example, but if they were to lose their fights because they are the listed underdogs in those fights, they could be there for Andy Ruiz Jr. Or he could take a bit of a crack at a guy like Travis Kaufman. I don't want to say that he's just an easy tune-up, but that would be a good way to get into the PBC stable, have a bit of a fight on an undercard somewhere. I think he would be able to beat Kaufman over 10 rounds. Not sure if he stops him. Ruiz isn't the biggest puncher, but I think he would easily outbox Kaufman over 10 rounds. So there's some options for Andy Ruiz Jr. in the PBC stable to get him active and busy in the next few months. Number of cards that PBC have coming up in the first 3 or 4 months of the year on Fox and also Showtime. So it'd be good to see Andy Ruiz Jr. get on one of those cards, get active, get his toe into the water and really get sort of cranking again, because it's been too long since we've seen him in a meaningful fight. Effectively over 2 years now. And for a guy who's in the prime of his career, he's basically under Top Rank. He's been withering on the vine, and that's never good to see. Andy Ruiz Jr., hopefully he has a big 2019. What do you make of the signing? Ruiz signing with Al Haymon and PBC. For me, I really like this announcement, and good on Andy Ruiz Jr. getting up from the circumstances that he wasn't happy with. He could have waited it out, but he's bought out his contract apparently from what Boxing Scene is reporting, and I think that's a good move. 2019 could be a very big year for Andy Ruiz. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.